Well, I want to say hello to you all, and I see familiar faces out there, so this is very exciting. Thank you for coming back, and I hope that we'll have some things that we can learn from one another now that you've taken the Pillars for Success home with you and had a chance to practice it. Some of what we're going to do is the dialogue, because I'd like to hear how things are going for you, what's worked and what hasn't, especially in this time of this pandemic. And then I want to review some of the principles with you also, so that those are re-anchored in your head. I also want to let you know that there is on the website, I don't know if you ever go to it, but it's pillarsforsuccess.com. And on the website is a wonderful new blog post that I've put on, 9 thoughts adults should consider during the coronavirus pandemic. Because not only is this affecting your children, it's having a profound effect on you, on me, on everybody, which has a huge effect on the dynamics of what's going on in your family. So this kind of is a perspective, and we just put it up. This is a perspective that you can look at to help you kind of recognize the process that's going on inside your homes. So does anybody have any feedback from having attended the course before and having tried things, having been successful, having wished they'd been more successful, having found some things didn't work for them? Is there anything along those lines that we'd like to discuss first before we go into the repeat dialogue of the principles of the training? So you've all been tremendously successful and nobody's got any issues. Gosh, that is awesome. All right, then we will just look forward to you interrupting anywhere along the way and putting your little name in the chat room so that we can get some feedback. And I think probably I would be very interested in knowing how you feel this epidemic that we're dealing with has affected your families and your parenting. If that's something you want to talk about now, great. Please let me know. And if not, then we will just hope to hear from you as this unfolds. We haven't talked in a long time, and I understand that that's it's kind of like meeting with strangers again. Although when we met regularly, I felt like I was with old friends. So we'll hope to achieve that status again. So let me go ahead then, and I think we're just going to start with the PowerPoint and go through the basic principles. We're going to go through them pretty quickly because you've heard them before. And again, I really want to urge you to go to the website for these 9 thoughts adults should consider during this pandemic. I think you'll find it very freeing. I think it's going to give you some understanding of the impact it has on us as we try to parent our children. And it has a huge impact. So I think we're ready to start then. I've got a little aid here. Okay, and we'll put this on. There we go. Let me just look.
Again, if anyone has any questions as we're going through, just put them in the chat.
Yes, please do. Please interrupt as often as you'd like, because I can sit and talk to myself and think I'm the smartest person in the world. So what I need is for you to question, for you to challenge, for you to keep us on track. So we'll just go on through the PowerPoint. That was Sandy, the tech person, attempting to put Parents Challenge on the first slide, Deborah. So it's a little blurry. It's not your glasses, but I got it up there. So I thought that was pretty good. Okay. Hold on one sec.
We have to restart this.
Okay, hold on.
Off of the full screen, take it back to when there's slides down the side.
Okay, why is that?
Just do it.
Okay, I don't, okay, here it is. Let's see. Hold on, guys. Let's see. I'm sorry to take this second. This is my skills and talents. I would have to open it again.
How
Hand
do
to
you,
show and open it.
how do you take it off of the full screen mode?
It's in the full screen mode now, so I would have to open it up
Show.
again.
There, okay.
Okay. So we were going to do the full screen, but you'll get a little preview along the sides. So let's just go on through it. And once again, the challenges you face now are so complicated by what is going to go down in the history books as something memorable throughout the history of mankind. But I want you all to remember that the challenges that you face with your children are never just about their behavior, never just about their behavior. It is always about an action on somebody's part, a reaction, how the other person responds. So if you're yelling at the kid, how the kid responds is going to conclude the whole process, which is the interaction. If on the other hand, it's the kid putting up some kind of a challenge to you, depending on how you respond, it's all about that action and that reaction. So it's important for you to remember that because it's never just about one single element. Okay.
Sandy, can you turn this into a slideshow?
That's what I started to do in my, hold on, my aide here
Doesn't use PowerPoint.
is not my PowerPoint person. It was in the slideshow mode.
How do you do it from here though? How do you start?
Okay,
slideshow?
wait a minute.
Do you use it all the
Yeah,
time?
you should be able to just click the,
From start.
yeah, do it from start. There we go.
Okay. So let's see if we can get it. Okay. All right. So once again, what happens between you and not just your children, another human being, but in this case, we want to consider our interactions with our children is always about the interplay of an action, a reaction, and an interaction. I think we inadvertently put that there. Helping your child to feel empowered. So generally as adults, we think that it's our job to be in charge, to be the ones who make all the decisions. It is ultimately our job to be the responsible caretakers, but particularly with children who are challenging you with their behaviors by not listening, by refusing, by talking back, swearing at you, whatever it is. One of the things that you're going to want to see that behavior as you're going to redefine it now, it is an attempt, and it doesn't work very well because it causes a lot of negative interactions, but it is an attempt on the part of that kid to have a sense of power and control. So one of the ways you help that to lessen and to resolve eventually is by empowering the child and giving him a sense of control. And we're going to get into the details of that. So what are we going to do? Please feel free to interrupt anywhere along the way. We're going to use a concept called irresistible influence, which is we're going to show them how they'll benefit from cooperating, which is not the same thing as bribing them, by the way. It is not the same thing as bribing them. We're going to show them of what benefit it would be to them, almost as if for the kid who cares about his grades, you study for the test, you get the A. You're going to show them what that A looks like in terms of your relationships. We're going to follow the WIFM rule. What's in it for me? Because children are basically very self-centered. As we grow up through our different levels of development, we become more and more conscious of other people, of their needs, of how we are affecting them. But for the most part, children are very, very self-centered. And I'm sure you could name some adults who you find that way also. Remember that we all have two ages. We have our chronological age, which is based on the year we were born, and we have our developmental age, which is based on our level of maturity. Now, ages are different. I could be very responsible, and maybe if I'm 10 years old, I could be as responsible as a 15-year-old. On the other hand, if I'm feeling extremely needy in terms of not having any control over relationships, I might be tantruming like a 2-year-old. So again, you have to understand that everything that goes on is dependent on developmental level, not just chronological age. So we're going to show the children, especially the ones who are giving us the challenges, we're going to assume that they're in a lower developmental level and a lower need base of a younger child. And so we're going to show them, just like we would a young child, what they're going to get out of doing what we ask, how it's going to benefit them too. And unlike what I'm doing to you, which is talking your heads off, and if you fall asleep, I'm going to ask somebody to poke you electronically. We're going to limit our comments to them 5, 6, 7 words. We're going to make it very brief. If you ever wondered, if your child is either very respectful, very passive, very self-controlling, and you're giving him a lecture, you'll notice that perhaps he's looking at you, perhaps he's listening to you, but I encourage you to take a look at that child when you're all done with your parent talk and ask him if he could please explain to you or remind you of what you just said. Because what you're going to find out, he's going to look at you probably and say, I don't know, because he wasn't even listening. So we keep our messages very brief. What did I just say to you? What did I just say to you? Nobody's going to the chat room, Deborah. You better start taking names here.
I'm watching.
Okay, we'll let that one slide then. Oh.
Keep it brief. Keep it brief.
Yep. And there's another huge principle, a very important principle that I refer to as family scripts. And those are the repeated conversations that you have in your families or in any relationships that last over a period of time. And you're not even aware that you're in these repetitive conversations. It could simply be, did you get your homework done? No, I don't want to do my homework. Well, I'm sorry, I'm going to watch TV. No, you can't watch TV now. And you begin to realize how you're doing it over and over and over again. Honey, did you get the garbage out? No, I'm going to do it later. But the garbage truck is parked out front, and that seems to be the every Monday morning script that you have with whomever. So you want to be very aware of those scripts because you can't change them, and we're all locked in family scripts. But the ones that are working, you want to be able to identify them because you want them to be repeated often because they're very successful for everyone involved. On the other hand, the ones that are causing tension and uncomfortable feelings and interactions between parent and child, you want to recognize those and you want to be able to change them. And you want to avoid those negative family scripts that lead to what I refer to as conflict by consensus, which means you have all agreed to once again enter that conflict. Now the kid is not going to be able to sit back and observe what's going on, but you are of that maturity level that you can begin to understand and to recognize when you're having those very repeated conversations. Anybody have any questions along that? I love it, Deborah, when we're all in one room. I want to break this screen to get closer to people. But do you have any questions or any thoughts or anything going on in your home that doesn't make sense? If you do, please get into the chat room. Don't wait for me to finish this if you have questions right away. It's very important that we bring it up when some of these concepts come up.
Okay, so here's one.
All right.
It's been difficult at our house because my daughter is home with my middle child, and it's hard to have a schedule when I'm not at home. Also more challenging to do homework after work.
Okay, so when you said you had one, I thought you were talking about your family. So go ahead and read it again. You mean someone has put one in. Go ahead and read it again. I was thinking about your children, and I thought they're not that young.
No, not my children.
Yeah, okay. So
I just hide them in the closet and tie them up.
Go ahead and read it again.
Okay. It has been difficult at our house because my daughter is home with my middle child, and it's hard to have a schedule when I'm not at home. Also more challenging to do homework after work.
Yes, indeed it is. And so what could you do about that? Well, I would probably be very in tune to what's not working about it, but I wouldn't say this isn't working. I would say, I wonder if there's a way that we could decide together how this could go more smoothly for everyone. So so number one, now it's not me asserting the authority on the other people. And number two, I'm not saying it negatively. You're not getting your homework done. I didn't say that. I said what we need to do is rethink our schedule so that, and you can put it in any words you want, so that we can all get the goals achieved that have to get done. And I would ask them, so when you talk about wanting people to be involved in a conversation, you have to give them the message that you respect what they have to say and that you're going to listen to what they have to say. So I would open up the conversation and say, does anybody have any ideas? How do you think we can solve this challenge? Not, why aren't you getting your homework done? And the only part that's not being verbalized is, you brat. Not, why aren't you getting your homework done, but how can we take care of this challenge? What kind of solution do you think? And see what they have to say. And if there are solutions that don't make any sense to you, I wouldn't close the conversation at that point. I'd say, you know what, let me think about that one. Let me just think about that one. Do we have any other ideas that maybe we should be thinking about too? And see if you can't. And then I might even throw one out there and say, what do you guys think of this idea? And if they say, and I'd come up with an idea, and if they'd say, no, I hate, okay, well then, I bet you've got something in mind. Can you hear my responses? They're all intended to be positive. They're all intended to show respect for what the other person has to say. And if they're coming up with things that make some sense, or even are partway a solution to the challenge of getting the homework done or whatever else, the kids getting along, then say, well, why don't we work on this part now? And then how about, let's talk again tomorrow night and see, after you've practiced this, how it went, and maybe we'll even have some different ideas at that point. So I hope that gave you some ideas, and if it didn't, please put in another chat and say, yeah, but this, I've tried that, it didn't work. So put something else in there so that we'll be able to.
Okay, so here's, she said, thanks. Here's another one, same issue with me. I work all day, and when I get home, schoolwork not done. With older kids, middle and high school.
And so it's under these conditions where Deborah, I'm going to ask you to just confirm that. It's under these conditions where the kids are home all day now because there is no school, correct? Is that what we're saying?
That is correct. That is correct.
So unless I'm missing something in what the person is describing, what I'm hearing is your expectation is that the stuff get done, and when it doesn't get done is when the conversation occurs. I'm wondering if you could flip it and start it the other way. Start the conversation. You could do it early in the morning, but if you're rushed to leave to go to work, then do it the night before. Don't even talk about what happened that day, but say, you know what? It seems like we're having different opinions about getting that homework done. And again, what do you think? What do you think would help us solve this challenge? What do you think it would be? Would you like me to spend some time with you in the evening? I can't think of very many kids that would, especially if they're high school age. Would you like me to sit down with you and work on your homework with you? Would you like, and just see what they have to say? Because, and you can let them know, because these are the solutions I see, and I can certainly make those happen when I'm home, but I'm wondering if you have some other solutions that you might like to try. So Deborah, just help me clarify, is this homework that, so schools, are they communicating with families with specific homework assignments, or is this homework the parents is assigning? How is this working generally?
So it really depends. Some schools are doing distance learning, and therefore they are providing teacher instruction via Zoom like we're doing today. Some schools are sending the homework to families for them to complete, and then families turn it in, and that information is graded on a weekly basis, but there's really no connection with their teacher. Some schools are allowing parents to figure it out themselves because they haven't figured it out. So there's a variety of things that are happening. Some schools are very engaged with their students on a daily basis, and so they're getting instruction. And then some of them are sending the students go into a portal, get the homework assignments or whatever, are expected then to complete them and turn them in.
And let me ask you, are the outcomes from the homework assignments, so if Susie Jones doesn't turn in homework the rest of the school year, does that mean, and Bobby does that mean Bobby goes to the next grade and Susie won't?
I don't know if anybody has any answers to that question right now.
I guess
So-
I would ask you, what is the benefit to the kid for doing the homework? And I'm not excusing them for not, I'm trying to understand it because I don't have a kid that age now.
So it really, right now, Sandy, everything is kind of in limbo. Some schools are probably going to pass kids just based on the fact that
Whether they turn the work in
based
or
on
not.
whether they turn it in or not. So as we call that, social promoting. Some schools have a lot of interaction between teachers to parents. Been fairly easy, very interactive. Don't do homework at this point. Some schools are expecting parents to some degree fill in the blanks and complete assignments that they've been given, and then the teachers will grade those assignments, and from there assign whatever grade the students have received. But in terms of whether or not students will be held back, students will pass on the next grade, students will graduate from, high school or whatever, all of that right now is still in limbo. So families right now are expected to provide instruction for their scholars every day, along with whatever connection they might or might not have with the school. They're still expected to provide some level of instruction to their kids every day.
When it's a younger kid, it would make sense to me that it wouldn't be difficult to say, this is what, even if it's when you get home from work, if you might not expect a younger kid to be able to do it independently completely, but to let them know, when I come home each night, I hope, whether it's an older sibling or a babysitter who's ever watching the kids while the mom's at work, I would say, I hope you have a fun day today, because when I get home, this is how we're going to spend our time. And then I think a parent could also put in the option of, unless you choose to do it before I get home, and then we can play games, watch TV, whatever. So making the child do it isn't working. So the only thing you can do is have a dialogue with the child. And again, how do you think we can work this out? Here's my solution. My solution is that when I get home from work, I'm going to set those papers out, and I hope you've had a relaxing day today, because that'll be your work time. It's kind of upside down, Joey or Susie or whoever, but life's upside down right now. So from now on, your days can be a little freer if you choose not to do your homework. Did you hear what I said? If you choose, because now I'm empowering the child that the child made the choice. So if you choose not to do your homework, then when I get home, that'll be homework time. If on the other hand, you choose to get your homework done, then when I get home, it can be just family time, playtime, how we can do game, whatever you want to do. But I would, again, you have no control over it because you're not there. I would, again, empower the child. What's your choice? And I want you to know that this is going to be my plan based on the choice you make. So you're in control of the plan, mom and dad. And because you're not there to control the child or persuade him to make a choice one way or the other, you acknowledge that. He's got the power to make the choice or to choose not to do it.
Now, Sandy, there are many parents that are at home because they're not working at this point in time. So you also have, you could have also the same situation where now we're trying to create a totally different daily plan, because mom and dad are home, or at least one parent is home.
Okay.
And my ability to still create a workable plan for us to get homework, schoolwork done
And
in
that,
conjunction either with the school and or independent.
does the school have, is homework has to get done, is it due on a certain day, or is it just by the end of the week, or how are they generally doing that?
It all depends on the school.
Okay, so then I would sit down with the kid and I would say, these are the requirements from the school. If you're not home all day, you let them know how the day is going to get structured, that they can either choose to do it during the day while you're gone, or by choosing not to do it, again, you're constantly empowering the kid. By choosing not to do it during the day, you are also making a choice to do it at night when I get home. And if you want, I can, fix you a cup of hot chocolate or, whatever, so that you're nice and comfortable while you're sitting at the table and doing the homework. If, on the other hand, you're home during the day, I would say the same thing to the kid. It's really weird, isn't it, that there used to be a structure to our lives where you would get up and you would go to this other place called school, and that would be where you did your work. And at home, maybe at night, you would have homework, but the school was the place you did your work. If you were in sports, you'd go to sports afterward, your baseball practice or whatever. But things are upside down now, so we have to make some new sets of rules. I'm inviting you to be part of that process in our family, or I can just decide to do it. And I would empower the child to be part of the process. So here's the pages, I would set aside the work. So if the kid gets, do they have worksheets or they have textbooks that they're being assigned? Where are they getting the content to do this homework?
Some of it is via e-learning. So the teacher actually might be doing a session just like this at a certain time during the day.
Okay.
Sometimes they go into a portal and they are assigned the work that they need to complete that day for that particular subject. It kind of depends on the age of the student. So here's one here. Any tips on getting our 10-year-old to go along with what you're saying? It looks different than how their teachers did things, and she is having difficulty with the transition. We get a lot of, that's not the way my teacher does it.
And I get that. And I would come alongside the child in my response. I would say, I get that. This isn't the way your teacher, isn't this confusing? You know what, Bobby, this is confusing for all of us. So we're going to have to figure out a new way to get these homework assignments done. Here's what I suggest. How do you think it could work? Because you can already see that giving him the assignments and he's not getting them done anyway. So what are you going to do? Get into a yelling match with the kid? So you're going to have to include him in the process. And so the question is not whether the homework's getting done or not. The question is, which way is it going to get done? So if I'm home during the day, I will set times for you. I would say to my kid, I will set times for you when it's homework time or schoolwork time. You don't even, whatever name. If the word homework is now negatively infected with just nasty thoughts about you can't make me do it, I'd pick another. I'd call it an assignment. I'd call it your math, your geography. I'd take away the word that's already got some negative connotation with it. So I wouldn't call it homework if you feel that that's a negative connotation, a negative meaning, because the kid's just going to dig his heels in. I'd call it something else. And you can say, so I'm willing to work this out with you. Would you like to create the schedule for getting this done? Or would you like me to create the schedule for getting it done? Again, you work with the kid and you let him know, if you create the schedule and you do it, hey, this is how we're going to celebrate that one. And I don't know what you have in your family, whether it's, let's make chocolate chip cookies, or let's all take a break and watch that show, or, whatever. I would offer him the opportunity to make the plan. I would write the plan down. I would definitely find a piece of scratch paper somewhere and write that plan down. And I'd look at Joe. If Joey can write, let him do it. If he's not willing to, you do it. And then let everybody sign off on that plan. Now let's sign at the bottom that we were both here. And you understand that this is what you're committing to doing. This is what you're agreeing to doing. And if this doesn't work, and you want some help or some support finding another plan, that's okay. The only plan that isn't going to work is the one where the homework doesn't get done. But we have all kinds of opportunities to create the plan of when and how it does get done. And I would give him that freedom.
So here's another one that's similar to that. The kids work in Google Classroom. That's how their school has it set up. So they work in Google Classroom.
Okay.
The mom works all day and exhausted by the time they get home. How do they begin to, and I think some of this you've answered a little bit, but how do they create structure when away from home 9+ hours a day?
So there's no adult in the home. Wait, I can't hear you, Deborah.
These are older kids.
Well, it isn't so much. So I would simply say to the kid, my expectation, let me see your homework for this week. Show me the pages. And so you look at the pages. And again, I would empower the kid. Which one do you think you can get done today? Let's say it's, I don't know how many pages of work these kids are getting. What do you think you can get done today while I'm at work? I'll be at work, and you've got to set aside work time for you too. And the only other choice that we have is when I'm not working on weekends or when I get home in the evenings, then I will manage your work time. Do you want to manage it, or do you want me to manage it? I trust that you can do it. You just have to choose to do it. How would you like to get it done? And again, I'd have him make out a schedule. And I'd start, so let's say he's made a schedule. Let's say he's got 4 pages of homework assignment. And I would not have him schedule in all 4. Wouldn't it be nice if he got 1 done and was successful at that, and you could all celebrate that and you could praise him? Don't allow him to fail at 4. You're already at 0 because he's not doing anything. So you want to work your way up into a positive mode, a positive interaction with him. And I would definitely suggest that you start with 1 and then you figure out how you're going to celebrate that. That's awesome.
So if Sandy, I may interject
Yes.
just for a moment. So families, one of the things I'm hearing Sandy say is there needs to be some conversation with your scholars, no matter what the age is, to look at changing the dynamics of what's happening right now with our scholars at home all day, and the changing dynamics of that. It's confusing for them, as well as it's confusing for you and everyone else. So as an adult, we'll make the statement, just get over it. This is how it is. But they're not an adult. And so we've got to look at what is the conversation that we're having with them to include them in this, because this is hard for them as well. They just don't know how to express it.
And if I could interrupt a sec, I would also say to them, I get it. This new life that we all have is confusing for me too. And I'm not getting things done the way I used to either, because all of the patterns and the schedules that we had before, they're not there anymore. And it's hard to stay organized when everything changes so suddenly, which is really what has happened. So, but I know you're a smart kid, and I think I'm a smart mom. Let's figure out what we can do together to replace it with a new schedule that we can count on. Because the only thing we can count on right now is ourselves, until this virus totally clears, and then school will go back to old patterns. Getting homework will get done in old patterns of time that you are so used to doing. You've been practicing them since kindergarten, but now we have to come up with a new plan. I can create the plan, or we can do it together. And I'm willing to learn and grow with you and find out which one will work for us. Because I don't know if the people next door might have a different plan that works for them. But the bottom line is this stuff has to get done. And include him as much as possible. And if he says, well, it sucks and I don't want to get it done, I get that. I don't want to go to work either. But sometimes we just have to swallow those pills of things we don't want to do and just get them done. And by the way, once you get it done, you don't have to be upset about not getting it done anymore. Get the darn thing done and put it on the fridge with a magnet or whatever, lay it on the counter, and then you're done. That's awesome. I'd start that way. Any other questions? Should we go forward? If some of you are feeling like, well, that sounds nice, but I don't know how I could make that happen in my home, please send that chat right on to Deborah, and let's challenge it as far as we need to until we can brainstorm a solution that'll work for you. And I love this concept of brainstorming because I'm looking at you and I can't get any feedback from you. So hopefully, you know, it's more of a monologue, but hopefully we'll be able to figure that out. So please keep
People are saying this is what they needed to hear. So
this is helpful. Good, good. So one of the things that's extremely important is understanding the difference between how children's brains work and how adult brains work. And the definition of children is very broad because there are average developmental stages that occur at average ages. That's not the same for everybody all the time. So you want to be keeping an open mind. If you've got two kids and the 12-year-old seems to be functioning in a much more organized fashion than the 14-year-old in certain areas, that doesn't mean that one's being more resistant necessarily or more negative or just trying to challenge you. It might be that's where he's at. Plus, when you take trauma, which by the way, mom and dad, is exactly what we're all going through with the changes, the abrupt changes in our lives and the scare around this virus. When you add that to the formula, you're going to have very different than expected outcomes from everybody, yourselves included. I'm amazed at how I've changed through this thing. Just dealing with all the concepts that are involved and the severe change in my life schedule and the things I'm able to accomplish. When it's with your kids, when it's for yourselves, it's easier not to think about grand, wonderful human themes. I want you to be productive. We should all cooperate. Kids particularly don't get those messages. If I asked 5 people to write down the definition of cooperate, I would get 5 different definitions. And when we've done this kinds of things in classes, when I've taught this training, it's so interesting to read people's responses if we've done that exercise. So it's very important that you respond to the child's developmental level under this trauma, whether he's 3 years old or 13 years old, or whether it's you at 30 years old, and you talk about the behavior you want to see, your expectations of what kind of behavior you want to see, rather than the values. I don't want you to cooperate. I want you, when I ask you and you have agreed to get your homework done, by the time I get home from work at 5 o'clock, first thing I'm going to look for and celebrate is when I see that page all done. You have just told them exactly the behavior that you want. You want that math sheet that we looked at this morning before I left for work to be completed, all the problems completed by you when I walk in the door. That's different than saying, I want you to be responsible about your homework. That's so broad, but if you give him a very specific behavioral expectation that you have, it's so much easier for your kid to be able to do it. And actually, it's the same for all of us. It's much easier when we know exactly what people expect. And one of the ways to accomplish that is to describe the behavior that you want, not the human value that you want. You don't want him to be respectful. You want that when he's frustrated, he says, Mom, I'm angry, instead of go to hell, Mom. Do you understand the difference? So if you look at him and say, be respectful, you have not told him what you want. I want you to say, I'm angry. And when you do that, Joey, I'm going to back off for a little bit and just that'll be my message to me, or your message to me that says, Mom, let's just both take a chill pill till we can settle down. Do you understand? So again, you're back to the behavior. The feelings and all of the higher concepts of how our brains work go with the behavior. The behavior is often a reflection of them, but one way you can avoid having mixed messages or unclear messages is to describe very concretely the behavior. Any more, Deborah? Any other questions? Okay. Please challenge as you would, parents. The other thing that we often do is we have expectations of our children, and when they don't live up to those expectations, what happens is we lower the boom. They have some kind of a, well, you know, if you remember from our training, you know what the F-bomb is, right? Well, I refer to it as the C-bomb because the word consequence is such an, that we've talked in when you attended the training about negatively charged words, and that's terribly important. There are certain words that have an emotional impact on us that we don't realize, and one of them is the word consequences. It's just like you would say the F-bomb, I call it the C word, because that's how negatively it affects the way two people communicate, a parent and a child. So you keep your child informed of, you see the slide, not the consequences, the outcomes. I found a substitute word that's very neutral. It has no negative charge in anybody's mind. So you let him know in advance what the outcome is going to be for the choice of behavior that he makes. Whether he chooses to cooperate, chooses to do what's asked. Maybe if you've given him an opportunity, okay, you say you can't do that. Well, what can you do? So maybe it would be, you know, clean your room and get the moldy sandwiches out from under the bed. I'm not going to do that. It's my room and you can't make me. Well, so now we've got a choice. How would you like to do that? I can help you. How about if we get a bag and go in there together and do it? Or did you want to do it all by yourself? Maybe you just want to do under the bed today and you can do the closets another day. Again, when you get to the point where you're hitting heads with your kid and it's going nowhere, particularly in these stressful times we're living in, you have to back away from that pattern because it's leading you nowhere, which is, I'm happy to say you've come here to listen. But if it's not leading you in a place you want to go, then that's the tip off to you to try another technique. So there we go. So what are some of the misconceptions? That this is dysfunctional behavior. And I would say to you that this is the most functional behavior on planet Earth. Whether it's temper tantrums, whether it's screaming, whether it's refusing, the kid accomplishes exactly what he sets out to do. He's in control, he shuts you up, you're kind of confused and feel like your arms are roped and you don't know what to do. The other is, and this is an unfair expectation that adults set themselves up to be nothing but failures. The adults are in charge and always know what to do. Oh my gosh, you know, I raised 4 kids. I was in foster care for close to 30 years, and I can tell you one thing, I was not always in charge and I did not always know what to do. So don't hold yourselves up to that. It's a setup for feeling badly about yourselves. And then I love this one. The way to win a power struggle is to flex your adult authority muscle. And if we were all in the room, I'd be looking at you all and say, how's that working for you? It doesn't work. It does not work. So again, it's a misconception that just leads to failure and frustration. And here's another one. Mature adults are immune to the behavior of children. So clearly, you guys must not be mature because your kids are driving you nuts. Wrong. Kids drive parents nuts. So this is an unfair expectation that we all say mature adults know how to handle their kids' behavior. That's not true. That's not true. Mature adults often don't know how. And then I love this one. This is probably my favorite. And this one is that the major goal, your major goal is to change your kids' behavior. And I would have to say to you, Mom and Dad, the only person in charge of behavior Their own behavior is the person themselves. You cannot change another person's behavior. You can set up situations so that they'll choose to change their behavior, so that they'll want to change their behavior because of your approval, some way you're going to celebrate, something like that. But you are setting yourselves up to feel like you're a failure because you can't change your children's behavior. Does that make sense? And the other one is, remember that there cannot be a war if both armies don't line up at the battle line. So if your kid digs his heels in and tries to start a big fight or a, I'm not gonna do it and you can't make me, and you don't line up toe to toe with him and dig those heels in and start showing him, puffing up and showing him I'm bigger than you and yeah, I can make you, I'm the mom or the dad or the teacher or whatever, don't do it. Don't enter those challenges. And we're gonna talk about other ways to get through it. And again, I'm referring to the family scripts because if you will go home and start listening to the repeated patterns of conversation, you will discover amazing insights about what's going on in your family. If they're positive, you might even end up saying to yourself, you know what, I didn't even realize that. Every time we have this conversation, it always ends in giggles, laughs, or somebody's praising somebody else. But when we get into this conversation, it always ends in a fight. You can't have any control over it if you don't recognize it. So don't do anything about the family scripts right away. Just start listening for them and looking for them and make a note of it. And we're
Well,
going to
Sandy, at this point, they don't have to go home. They're home 24/7.
That's true. So the other thing is, things might be going well. Oh my gosh, all of a sudden, that argument is over. It's not happening anymore. There has been change, just the word change in your family. Whether it's positive change or negative change does not matter. There has been change. And what happens is the behaviors that make us who we are, we have practiced our entire lives. The behaviors and the interactions you get into with your kids, you have practiced over and over again. You're going to find that if you follow some of these recommendations, that things are actually going to get better. And then all of a sudden you're going to go, what happened? It all just slipped backwards again and we're doing it again. Change causes imbalance, not because it wasn't a good change, but because it's different than how you've been doing it for so long. And imbalance causes resistance. There's a resistance to the change. So you just want to back up, take a deep breath, slow down, and pick it apart again the way we talked about some of these other situations. Maybe saying, boy, I remember last week when I asked you to do that, gosh, you'd say, okay, mom or dad or Uncle Joe or whatever, and you'd get it done. And now all of a sudden we're fighting over it again. And how do you think we can find our way back the other way? Because I could see how happy you were about it, and I can tell you I felt the same way. And include the kid in the solution process. So, children really are as self-centered as they seem. Neurologically, their brains don't develop for them to think beyond themselves. Developmentally, you could have a kid or an adult who is very self-centered, who thinks it is all about me. And that's how they see the world, and that's how they see the situations that happen in their relationships with other people. I don't like the way that went. I'm not happy. They don't care whether the other person's happy or can be part of a solution. They just don't like the way it went. So what's the difference? And this is a quick summary. Normally the thing is much longer. Children are self-centered, which is normal part of development, and adults think about others. Children see themselves as all-powerful. Omnipotent is the big fancy word for that. And adults recognize their personal positives, the negatives, and their limitations. Children think magically. Magically would have to do with the boogeyman under the bed, but it isn't just, look at me. Do I look like a child? I still buy lottery tickets. That's magical thinking. That's absolutely magical thinking. And I'm sure I told this story when we had the class together, but it's such a funny one. I'll tell you again. So I don't know how much I invested in these stupid lottery tickets during a year. And one day, all of a sudden, it was an epiphany. It was an eye-opening insight. And I said, oh my gosh, no wonder I haven't been winning the lottery. This is how a kid's brain works in terms of magical thinking. I go up to the counter at the 7-Eleven and I say to the clerk, I'd like to buy a lottery ticket. How stupid can I be? I know how to fix that. I can't even tell you how excited I was the next time I went into a 7-Eleven. I walk up to the counter, cocky as can be, because I'm going to be a millionaire when this lottery ticket is drawn. And I look at the guy and I say, I'd like to buy a winning lottery ticket. And I couldn't wait to get home and find out that that ticket had been picked. It didn't work. But magical thinking works like that. It's irrational thinking, and that's a perfect example of it. I really thought that if I would change my words, maybe then I could win the lottery. And kids think irrationally like that all the time. And by the way, guys, if I can do it, you can too. So do you sometimes. Children think very concretely, what they see, what they touch, what they hear, what they feel, what temperature it is. And adults have abstract. They think about the process of things. They think about feelings. They think about human interactions. Kids are like, give it to me now or shut up. They're just very much about concrete behaviors. Children think about short-term planning and short-term experiences. I just want it now. I want it now. I need it now. It doesn't matter to me what happens 6 weeks from now. I need it right now. And adults can participate in long-term planning, long-term thinking about what goals they want to achieve and what the outcomes will be. So you understand that you're also interacting with your kids coming from two very different perspectives from how you view and experience the world. And by the way, depending on the stresses and strains that you are having in your lives or my life or anyone's life at any given time, we go backwards in our ability to function more as adults. Our coping skills start to be in the age range of somebody who's younger. So let's consider the many ways you can reach your child. And there's a perfectly good example. You can't make me. So you're going to learn to speak I am. And I am is the acronym for it's all about me. What you're going to do is you're going to respond to the child. Number one, if the child says you can't make me, unless you figured out a way to get a remote control and make your kid do something, I never did, I'd look at him and say, you're right, I can't make you. But how can we figure this out so it'll work for both of us? And then you begin to negotiate in the ways that we've mentioned so far. You're going to acknowledge and celebrate your child's power. You're right, I can't make you do anything. You are absolutely right, because you know what? You can't. And you're going to consider the many ways that you can reach your child. You're going to show your child how he'll benefit. And it doesn't have to be things, especially in this era that we're living in, where a lot of people have lost their jobs. And he can benefit by, he or she, by a back scratch, by sitting down and playing cards with them, by drawing together, whatever it is the kid values. You show the child how he'll benefit by doing what you've asked. And if the kid says it sucks, you know what? You look at the kid and say, I hear you. I understand that for you, this sucks. I get it. And you know what? Sometimes when I have to do stuff that I don't want to do, I think it sucks too. You agree with the child. And you speak, as we talked about before, in behavioral terms. You don't want him to be responsible about school. You want him to get the math homework sheet or how many problems on it. If he can't do the whole thing successfully, then have him do 5 problems. And you'll check those when you go home. But it's behavioral. And you want to offer concrete rewards. So none of us are in a very good place to be spending money on any kind of concrete rewards, but there's other concrete rewards. There's time to play catch together. There's a back scratch. There's a, I'll put your hair in ponytails if that's what you like, or I'll break. You know, you have to think about other things that can't be purchased that your kid enjoys doing. So, what are the many ways you can reach your child? You're going to remember the power of magical thinking. And if they're communicating with you irrationally from a power base that you know doesn't exist, there are 3 words that are so awesome They don't put you in a position where you are saying you agree. They also don't put you in a position where you're challenging the child to show them how that thinking just doesn't make sense. And here are the 3 words. You look at your kid and you just simply say, I hear you. You haven't agreed, you haven't disagreed, you have just acknowledged that you're listening. And that's one way to get off of that argument script that you're into. Just, I hear you. And I would just, you don't need to explain anything more. And then you might even say, is there anything else? Because I'm really listening now. Is there anything else that you feel you want me to hear? Because I hear you now. And we're going to talk about it. Another slide's going to pop up in just a minute. But another way, so you all know I did foster care for, gosh, close to 30 years. And the kids that came to my home were kids that were so complex that they had already failed multiple placements. One kid failed that came to me at the age of 5 and had failed 10 placements in 2 years. And so these were tough kids. And I would simply, when this kid would get upset and start to rant and rave, I remember one time I looked at him and I said, you know what? What you are saying is so important. I didn't say whether I thought it was important. It's important. Can you just hold on a sec? I want to go grab a pencil and a paper and I want to write that down. So by the time we got done, so now the kid is still crying, kind of sobbing. I'm running and getting the paper, and his name was Will, and I said, okay, Will, go ahead, and now you tell me what's on your mind. Well, and he's on and on and on. Hold on, Will, I can't write that fast. Do you know that by the time we got done, Will is no longer screaming. He is waiting for me to finish writing what I'm writing, and I'm writing as fast as I can. And by the time we got done, how many minutes? I don't know, 15 minutes, 20 minutes. By the time we got done, Will is completely under control. He's no longer screaming, yelling, and flailing all over the place. I've got this wonderful document that says I honor what he feels. I'm not agreeing. I'm honoring that he has these feelings. And then we get into conversation, chapter 2 of the conversation. I said, wow, Will, I never realized how you felt, and I'm so glad you shared it with me. Now we've got to do some more planning. I said, what should we do with this piece of paper? Do you want to, should we just put it on the fridge? If you have magnets on your fridge, you can put it under a magnet. If not, piece of tape. Would you like to have it back? Would you like to have it for yourself? Or maybe we should start a notebook. How about if we start a notebook? And then whenever you have big feelings like this, let's assume Will could write it down. This kid didn't have the skills to do that, so I wrote it for him. But you could even say, would you like to write it, or would you like to tell me about it and I'll write it down for you? So again, you're not agreeing, you're not disagreeing, you're acknowledging that he has big feelings. You're not evaluating them. You're just acknowledging it. And that's another way to get control over this. And irresistible influence, again, whether you order your kid and he defies you, which puts you in a very negative place, or maybe you give him your expectation in such a way that he sees how he's going to benefit by doing what you asked. And so let's assume it's about the room, and maybe he's got maggots and bugs crawling all over because he's got rotten food under his bed and who knows what. The other thing you could do is you could just let him know. So that's going to get cleaned up. Do you want to do it? Would you like me to help you do it? No, I'm not going to do it. It's my room and you can't make me. Okay, but just understand that when I do it, so let's say today is Tuesday, I'm going to wait till Friday because I think that you're probably going to decide to do it, but that's your choice. It's absolutely your choice. But if not, I just want you to know Friday, I'm going to go into your room and get that cleaned up, and you don't make a big deal out of it. However, you may be picking up some other things while you're in there cleaning that maybe he didn't want removed. And you can let him know. But remember, I told you I was going into the room to take care of that. If you don't want me to remove those things from your room, then I guess you'd like to take care of your room, because when I'm in there, I'm going to do it the best way I know how. So we could either work together if you want, or I can do it by myself if you want, or if you'd like to do it by yourself, that's a great idea too. And again, you put the power back in his hands. Emotional age affects our feelings and behavior. So we talked a little bit about the difference between chronological age and developmental age. Chronological age is based on the year you were born. Developmental age is based on your maturity at any given time. Your maturity is not going to be the same for every experience you have in your life and every challenge you face. If it's a tough challenge, if you're frustrated, if you're feeling badly about yourself, you may, that 8 or 10 or 14-year-old kid may become a squawking, crying 2-year-old. If, on the other hand, something's going better in their lives, they'll have a different age level of behavior. So the question is, how old is the child? The bigger question, or the equally important question, is, how old are you? So depending on the frustrations you face in your lives, the successes and challenges that you face in your lives, we're no different than our kids. We're all human beings. We're all out of the same type of a human being mold. We're going to go up and down in our coping skills and in our maturity also. So you want to think about that and be able to reflect about that and start observing yourself a little bit. So let's talk a little bit about triggers. So can you feel when the Hulk is growing inside of you? I guarantee you, your kids are master psychologists. They know exactly what ticks you off. They know exactly how to piss you off. They know exactly how to please you. And when they're feeling out of control in their world, they know exactly how to get control over you. So children know our triggers, how to make us upset, how to satisfy us. And you can't make your child think the way you do. So you're going to have to use his logic instead, because your level of maturity allows you, unless you're feeling very vulnerable and much younger developmentally, allows you to look beyond yourself to see what the kid is feeling and experiencing. And so you're going to use their logic instead. You're going to let them know what'll happen if after they do what you ask. And by the way, there's a label in scientific understanding of behavior. So you've heard of positive reinforcement, and the same behavior tools are used for training animals. It's like when the dog gets a dog cookie because he sat when you told him to, or gets a pat or whatever. So it's the same thing with human beings. You let them know what's going to happen after they do what you ask, and you let them know in advance, and then you follow through. And if you keep giving them second chances, third chances, you have now created a new pattern of behavior reinforcement, where you have now just reinforced that they will not do what you asked the first time. You're going to get into this new pattern of second times and third times, and you're going to drive yourself nuts doing it. So if you ask them once, and once is exactly what your limit is, then you just let them know it's your choice. And then what are you always going to let them know? What the outcome is going to be in advance. And if you forgot what outcome is, it's that C word. Okay? Now, it sounds like such a simple principle. It's so powerful because it empowers the child. You're going to let, if they defy or won't cooperate with something that you've asked them to do, then you offer them choices. Do you want to do it now? Do you want to do it later? When would you like to do it? Do you want to do part of it now? Which part would you like? You just do whatever you can to make them feel empowered, because then they don't have to show you their bully power. You have just made them feel empowered. So remember the rules for talking to your kids. You're going to talk to them about behaviors. That means concrete. Behaviors more than thoughts and feelings. Concrete is more powerful than conceptual. So behaviors are more powerful than thoughts and feelings. You're going to make it simple. The less words, the better. And if you're one of those parents who gives these wonderful, heartwarming talks to their kids about the values of life, again, ask them at the end if they could just summarize for you what you just said to them. And there's going to be your report card on how much they got. Not much. Not because what you said wasn't valuable, but because they just aren't capable of listening. So again, for that reason, you're going to avoid the lectures. You're going to use behavioral language to let them know what's expected, when it's expected, and how you'll celebrate the completion. And you're not going to be rigid about it. If they can't do it the way you designed it, say to them, well, how could we do it so that we can all be successful together? If that won't work for you, how could we get it done? You're never going to change the goal. You're just changing the steps to the goal. So the rotten food still has to come out from under the bed because there's 2 dead mice under there. They tried to get it and the food poisoned them and they died under there. So the food's got to come out. How's it going to happen? I can help you. Oh, you'd rather wait and do it tomorrow? So tomorrow morning you'll get it done? Yeah, one more day's not going to matter. Sure, we can do it tomorrow, or you can do it tomorrow. And then how you're going to celebrate the completion. Wow, that's great. You know, after you get that done, and again, we haven't got money to go buy things these days, but you can, there's other things you know your kids like, whether it's a game, a back rub, a whatever, singing a song together. And the other thing you want to be asking yourselves over and over again is, what influence does the child have on the decision-making process? You want them to feel like they are part of the process, and they won't fight you anymore because they were just had as much power as you did to come to a solution. Disruptive, challenging behavior is a way of coping. In my entire career, I'm just watching time because I don't want to stay till 10. Well, I could stay till 10. I think you'll all be sleeping though. Why is the child behaving this way? There are only 3 reasons that I have been able to simplify it down to over an entire lifetime career of dealing with every kind of kid in every setting on planet Earth. Reason number 1, attention. It's the ABCs of challenging behavior. Attention. There is nothing a human being will not do if he needs attention. And if I can't get your attention positively, I sure know how to get it other ways. The other is basic survival needs. A feeling of safety when you go to sleep at night, food to eat, something warm to, or whatever, clothes to wear. There's people steal all the time to get that done. And the other is control and power. There is nothing a human being will not do to have a sense of power and control in his life. And those are the 3. When your child is presenting all kinds of this garbage behavior to you, I hope I'm giving you the tools. And this is a review from when you did attend the class of how you can look back and think a little bit about what is going on here. In this case, it's which one of these needs. And you don't have to be a psychologist and be afraid that if you guess the wrong one, it's one of these 3, or maybe it's 2 of these 3, or maybe at that point it's all 3 that's resulting in that behavior. So you want to do what you can to help the child get those needs met. So we're no longer defining challenging and defiant behavior as something that needs to be punished. We're talking about the kid screaming in ways that are the only ways he has left to tell you, I am out of balance and I'm feeling like I'm drowning. But he can't say that, and he's not even aware that he's feeling it. But if your response is some kind of an attempt to meet these needs, I guarantee you, you will see change. Your adult toolkit is you be clear, you be calm, and there's a big difference between having sympathy for somebody and having empathy for somebody. When you have sympathy for somebody, you're not alongside one another. You have sympathy for this broken hand over here. You want to have empathy where you come alongside and you nurture and care for and share with whatever that person is feeling. You have empathy with, you have sympathy for. And the empathy is what brings the closeness between the adult. Oops, sorry, I'm hitting buttons and talking to you. Okay. And at all costs, we're going to avoid power struggles because every power struggle has a winner and a loser. And I guarantee you, whenever there's a winner and a loser in a power struggle, the power struggle will repeat itself because the person who is the loser doesn't like to feel like that. It feels like garbage. And they will restart the power struggle, even on another idea or theme or challenge, just to become the winner. So what do you get if there's total refusal? I won't do it and you can't make me. I stop talking. I don't continue to argue. I make sure the child, I calmly let him know, that's your choice. Just understand these are the outcomes. And if there's absolute refusal, remember I told you those words? I hear you. Don't get in the argument, just simply, and you're not agreeing with him, you're just acknowledging that you heard him. Or you could offer to do it. You could talk about how you're going to do it. You could share your plan with the kid, and then it's his choice to do it or not with you or for you, but you let him know you're going to follow your plan. And you might look at him, unless you've got another plan for getting it done. What's your plan, Joey? Ooh, that sounds like that's a pretty good plan. We'll go with that one. And if that one works, then good for you for thinking of it. And you're going to avoid flexing that adult authority muscle, because all you're going to do is create this, the head banging power struggle. And you're going to be very clear in advance about the outcomes. Because if you wait until the kid has made the bad choice and now you're pissed and he's angry and then you hit him with all these, and furthermore, you can't do this and your bike gets put away till you're 25 years old. You know, the madder we get, the crazier things we threaten our kids with. You want to be clear about the outcomes at the very beginning while you're calm. And they are not consequences. Don't use that C word. They are outcomes. You're going to continue the chat. The other thing is, so I had a kid who lived in my home. This was funny. And we had what I called the safe space. It was my laundry room. It had a nice rug in the bottom. I had pillows and blankets in there. It was simply a washer dryer. It was right off the living room. And one day, the kid who was always having rages and tantrums and was back in the safe space, settling down, all of a sudden, the door flew open to the safe space. It was half closed. I never close it all the way. I don't want to isolate him, but it was half closed. The door flew open and out he marches. And I thought, oh my God, what do I do now? I can't physically tie him up and make him stay in that room. He was coming out and I couldn't stop him. So this is what I did. I looked at him and I said, his name was Zach. And I looked at him and I said, Zach, that's amazing. Do you think you could come 10 more steps into the room? And Zach is also crying because he's upset. I said, could you cry louder? Do you think, Zach, you could start screaming? And I wasn't laughing while I was saying all this. What do you think finally happened with this kid, Zach? I'm totally calm while I'm doing it. He looks at me and he says, I'm not talking to you anymore. He makes a U-turn and goes back in the laundry room. Amazing. We never had a fight. We worked it out. Resist moralizing to your kids. Don't give them the moral value. Again, remain behavioral. What behavior are you expecting? And what is going to be the outcome for them? What's the wonderful thing? The back rub, the hug, the smile, the chocolate chip cookie, whatever it is. And so when it comes to kids not getting things done, again, you can't make them do it. I would set up a system where I would get the time back. Okay, so you've chosen not to do that for, 18 minutes. So sorry, but the TV's going to stay off. It's my TV and the TV's going to stay off for 18 more minutes before we can put on SpongeBob or, whatever it is. So again, you just get the time back. And again, when it comes to the he did it conflict, if you have more than one kid in your home, have you ever heard this one? How did that happen, guys? He did it. No, he did it. No, he did it. So what I would do is I would seat one kid in one side of the house. I'd seat the other kid in the other side of the house. I'd make sure they were comfortable and cozy. And I'd say, I think you guys just need some time to think about it. And I'd set the timer on the stove, on the microwave, and I'd say, I'll set it for 5 minutes. And sure enough, the timer went off. And I went to kid number one and I said, what happened? He did it. Okay, that's all I wanted to know. Then I went to kid number two. And so that car got broken. What happened? He did it. Oh, that's all I wanted to know, guys. Okay, I guess you need some more time to think about it. I'm as calm as can be. And I set the timer. I said, maybe you need more time. Let's try for 10 minutes this time. I think the first time we did it, it was over an hour. I didn't say you have to sit there for 1 hour. We did it in increments. And as soon as and finally one of the kids said, you know what? I smashed his car when I had my shoes on. I just smashed on it as hard as I could. And I looked at the kid and I said, wow, that took a lot of guts to come forward and tell me the truth like that. That's absolutely awesome. But then the kid had to have outcomes for his behavior. So, which is the C word, the consequences. But I praised him for having the guts to finally tell the truth. So you see how you're constantly promoting and rewarding the positive behavior. So how we see things influences our relationships. The way you think about something and how you perceive it absolutely controls how you respond to it. Thoughts and perceptions trigger behavior and feelings. No, there's the sympathy, empathy thing. We already discussed it. And so what we're going to do is when you say yes or no, it's going to be very clear and you are going to follow through. You're not going to sit there and go, well, maybe, yeah. No, I think you might say to the kid, you know what, I haven't, very authoritatively, I haven't made up my mind yet. I need some time to think about this and I'll get back to you after I've thought it through. Basically, you're saying the same thing. I don't know what to do, but you're not doing it that way. You're doing it in a way that is clearly defined parental authority. I'm going to give this some thought and I'll let you know.
Well, Sandy,
Yes, ma'am.
before you move on,
Yes, ma'am.
what I would like to offer is an opportunity for folks to take themselves off of mute
I would love it.
and see, you know, what you've picked up tonight that maybe you've forgotten to put in place, or what you wish that you did more of. And it probably would make a huge difference. And again, because we're under a new norm, what impact of those who are at home all day with your scholars, or those that are working and your scholars are at home with someone else or at home by themselves, what impact is that having in terms of trying to, again, create some better semblance of working through some of these positive scripts, being very clear and concise regarding what you're asking them to do, making sure that the behavior is clear. So if folks would take themselves off of mute and just maybe share some of those concerns or issues or thoughts that you might have.
That's a great idea. Thank you, Deborah.
I have one.
Okay.
It's kind of twofold. First of all, I want to say that I really appreciate you reminding us about staying behavioral and not value oriented when we're describing the behavior that we want from our children. I love that. And I think it's easier to do when they're toddlers, but now that mine are mostly teenagers, I expect them, no, I want you to be a servant. No, like we don't need to talk about that. We need to talk about what does a servant look like, right? My 21-year-old is sitting with me and we're talking about what you're talking about. And one of the things that I always am frustrated about is there's so many times in life where you just have to do what you have to do and you don't get a choice about it, you know? And it's not a power and control thing. There just sometimes are not options on the way that you have to do something, you know? Like, so he wants me to ask you that question and see what you have to say about it.
I don't disagree with that. If, as a parent is parenting a child, regardless of the age of the child, and there is this constant head banging, arguing, no solution, aggravating outcome for everyone, I'm giving you the ways to pick other patterns for problem solving and coming to some solution. And believe it or not, by sharing, you are choosing to share the authority, the parental authority, by saying, and I'd like your opinion, or how do you think we could solve this? Your authority is not being taken away from you. You are choosing to delegate to them some of that authority. So these are solutions when things keep going in circles and there seems to be no solution. There's no resolution. It's not being resolved. And these are ways to break those patterns. But if you as a parent can say to your kid, this is what has to get done and you've got to do it, and the kid goes and does it and maybe gives you a little bit of guff, but basically gets it done, go for it. These are for those of us who end up going down these long paths of constant frustration and repetition of the same patterns that don't allow either the child or the parent to be successful. Does that help? And if not, go ahead and ask some more.
I understand what you're saying, but I don't know that it really like addresses exactly what I'm saying. Like if you had your boss and he had something that he needed you to do, sometimes you don't get an option, you know, sometimes you don't get to be creative about how to fulfill what's being asked of you. And I feel like there's a balance, right? There's a time when there can be some creativity and stuff like that. But I feel like sometimes if we swing too far and just allow them to have options about how they're going to do things every single time, and there's not a just, I'm asking you to do this, so therefore you do it. And once you've obeyed, once you've gotten the task done and you've done it the way that I'm asking you to do it, we can discuss it later. But like in this moment, there needs to be some direct obedience.
And what happens to the families who have created patterns that replace that with that look like this? I'm not doing it and you can't make me. I'm just not doing it. So you may have not experienced that in your relationships with your children, but that's not to say, or you may have experienced it and found your own techniques for gliding through it in a way that allowed you to retain your authority and for the child to stop the belligerent behavior. When those techniques don't work, and for a lot of parents, they don't work, and particularly in a stressful time like we're living now, because the parent doesn't have the same degree of integrated coping skills because they're under so much stress, then these are the techniques that you can call upon to dig your way out of this. But if you are able to find resolution before you get to some of these, or maybe step 1 and 2, and then you've gotten it and the kid is complying, more power to you. Over and over and over, for a lot of families, that is not the case.
I think one of the things also is that there are going to always be situations where where you do have a choice. So for instance, if you say, well, my boss has said I need to do X, well, you do have a choice. You either do it or you get fired. So I think in every situation, there is a consequence to not doing something.
What did you say?
Or deciding that you want to do something.
What word did you say?
What?
What? She just said the C word.
I know. I know.
There's an outcome.
There's an outcome that happens when, in fact, you decide that you want to do something opposite of that. So I think that's the piece that having that balance.
On the other hand, if a kid keeps challenging you and has to deal with the outcomes of those challenges, which results in repeated negative patterns between you and the kid, and you always end up the winner, but those patterns keep repeating themselves. If you're not comfortable with that pattern, then you want to have some techniques to create a new pattern. Does that make sense? So you may win all those arguing bouts with the kid, but if one day you just say, I'm sick and tired of constantly arguing with them before something gets done, then you want to have some alternate techniques to try to see how you can get out of that mode of one against the other. And so that's what this is. This is a menu of opportunities to choose from when you feel like you just are so frustrated and tired of arguing with the kid or him refusing to do what you want him to do. And it sounds like you have found solutions along the way. either intuitively, or the other thing is that I want you guys to be very aware of is not only do we parent, we are also a product of people who parented us. And the way we are parented has a huge impact on how we parent. And very often we're not even aware of the parenting skills and challenges we face that are actually repetitions of how we were parented, and the skills and challenges that our parents faced in parenting us and how they handled it. So it's actually a much more complex situation than you realize, because every one of us is the product, whether we grew up in a group home, a grandparent home, a bio home, an adoptive home. Every one of us is of the result of being parented or supervised, cared for by somebody. And for some of us, for all of us, very often we just automatically, it's like breathing. So I do an exercise with the class sometimes when I teach this class, and I will just simply, I'll give people no other instruction, and I'll say, we're not going to talk, and I'm just going to keep time for 1 minute. And I do, and we all sit there and they're all wondering, what in the heck is she doing? And at the end of the minute, I say to them, can you tell me how many times you took a breath? And nobody can answer. They say, well, no, I don't know. I was just breathing. And I say, that's the same thing with repeating patterns in our lives. We're not even aware we're doing it. We're not even aware we're doing it. Just like you couldn't tell me how many breaths you just took in the last minute. Does that make sense? And that's what I'm talking about. I'm trying to make you aware so that when you get into positions that are uncomfortable, that are repeatedly negative, that are experienced badly by you and whoever else is involved. In this case, it's the kids, but these are universal patterns of human behavior, whether it's a kid, a spouse, whoever. I'm trying to give you ways to circle around it and come and have another way to come to some solution. And that's what this is about. And so you remember, does that satisfy the question, or do you still feel like I don't quite understand what she means?
I kind of feel like you've given me a satisfactory answer, and there's probably a bunch of other people that want to have something to say.
Okay. Does anyone else want to say anything, or I could just yak forever? You guys are good? Okay, interrupt if you do. So how you communicate.
I want to interrupt, sorry.
Yeah, go for it.
I just wanted to add in that this information has been super helpful to be reminded about, because now that I'm with my children in a given day where they're supposed to be doing schoolwork and creating a new norm and teaching them and helping them through the day in the life of a teacher, I guess, for lack of better words, I feel like I have gone through just about every single scenario that you have mentioned. So, and my son even pops in, he says, Mom, weren't you just, going through that with me today? I was just like, yeah. Like, he's listening, of course. But, I was just like, yeah. It's really nice that we're going through this over again, because I'm telling you, if I could just record everything that you're saying and just listen to it every single day, I would just love it, because I'm like, I've heard this stuff all before,
Yeah.
but I'm like, oh yeah, I do have an arsenal of weaponry, for lack of better words, but you know what I mean?
An arsenal.
I just think it's great. I just want to share that.
No, you have an arsenal of opportunities, not weaponry.
Well, for me, it feels like a weapon, because now I'm just like, okay, these are, probably tools are better. But for me, it's just like, okay, so I know how to handle him a little bit.
Perfect.
Better.
And Sarah, if I remember correctly, when you went through the class, you were repeatedly, at one point you said, well, it wasn't you?
Oh, no. I'm just
I
recollecting
remember,
just
I
how,
think,
just
I remember
the
you
whole time.
saying, I don't get it. It sounds to me like
Mhm.
you're just, and I appreciated your honesty. It sounds to me like you're just talking about different ways to bribe the kid. And I explained, we went back through it again. But the best
Mhm.
part, and to show you what a gift it was, I remember when we did the follow-up training after the class, those few months after, you came up to me, you and your husband came up to me afterward and you said, Sandy, I get it. I get it now. And I have goosebumps while I tell you, because it was such a phenomenal light that you finally saw, and it was really something. And you said, and we have been trying it, and it made such a difference with our kids. So the fact, if any of you or all of you are struggling with it, that is not a negative. That's a testimony to the fact that you're free thinkers. And it's also a testimony to probably how you were raised. But if you keep working on these concepts, you will see how effectively they can allow your child to feel empowered, to feel independent, to feel successful. And guess what? You end up feeling the same way.
Well, for me, definitely, it has been very eye-opening for sure. And I appreciate you doing this again. And I hope to hear from you again.
Well, we're
It has
going to
been
get an
very
online.
helpful.
Yeah, this is going to be the year we're going to get an online course going too. So anyway, so how you communicate affects what you communicate. So look at this dude. Sweetie, I'm not mad. I actually totally forgot about it. What's his body language telling us? He's exploding inside. So you also want to remember to keep your feelings and your words in synchronization, matching one another. Just like this guy, everything he's saying. And so if that's a kid who's using power and control on you, you understand he's got dad feeling like that. And by the way, it doubles the kid's sense of control when dad can't even own it. Yeah, you made me mad. He says, sweetie, I'm not mad. I just told, and that just double empowers the kid. So, or gives him a sense of power and control. So negatively charged vocabulary. There's the C word. It's right up at the top. I've also had parents and Parents from Parents Challenge who have said, when I stopped using that C word, I couldn't believe the difference in what my kid cooperated with. The other negatively charged word is timeout. You need to go to the timeout room. Forget it. That word has got so much negative feeling to it because the kid has heard it so many times in his life. Find another word to use. The quiet space. In my home, it was the safe space. We even had comfortable stuffed pillows and blankets in there where the idea wasn't to punish and torture the kid. It was to give him a space where he could be comfortable and calm down. And the other is that word punishment. You use the word, and your punishment is you are automatically triggering for that kid to go, no way in hell. I'll show you what you're going to need to punish me for. So call it a solution. Is it a punishment or a solution? It's going to be a solution. You find replacement words. You start watching in your family and you find replacement words for the ones that you see are resulting in more negative interactions. Okay, we're going to whiz through here. So there's a difference in every living thing and every non-living thing between its attribute and its identity. The attribute is a quality built into someone. The identity is actually who the person is. So you're going to externalize the problem. So you don't have a bad boy. You have a boy with bad behavior. You don't have a disrespectful kid. You have a kid, and disrespectful, by the way, isn't very clear, but you have a kid with disrespectful behavior. You're going to separate the human being from the behavior, the human being from the feeling, the negative feeling he's carrying. And so let's take a look at Herman here. What does Herman look like to you guys? What is the shape of Herman? What kind of animal would you call him? Want some help? Herman's, his shape looks like a rhinoceros. What is his fur? What does his skin look like? A zebra. So are you talking about a striped rhinoceros or a zebra with a head like a rhinoceros and a big horn? You want to separate the attributes, which is the description, from the identity, which is the name of that animal. And it's the same thing with your kids. You don't have a bratty kid, you might have a kid with bratty behavior. You don't have whatever word you would assign to him, you separate that from the identity of the kid. It's going to allow you to deal more positively with the kid, but more importantly, in your own mind, you're going to see that you still have this kid with all this great potential, and you just have to deal with the behavior. So, how can something so easy seem so hard? The closer you get to addressing the child's needs at their developmental level and their language in a behavioral way, in a calm voice and a calm attitude, you're going to offer choices, state outcomes, and show the child how he'll benefit, you're going to avoid power struggles. And that's the closer you're going to get to positive outcomes. Okay, we're coming to the end here. We're going to focus on the desired replacement behavior, not what the kid has done wrong, but what you'd like him to do instead. Pillar 5, adult responses can alter the outcomes. You're going to keep clear boundaries, and the clearer you set the boundaries, the more freedom you're going to have. And remember, I used that word intermittent reinforcement before. If sometimes it's okay, sometimes it's not, sometimes it's okay, you're being inconsistent in your responses. Researchers would call that intermittent reinforcement. Once you pick an outcome, once you pick a response to a behavior, once you're sure it's fair, it's not unnecessarily punitive, you're not in a power struggle with the kid, then you just keep that outcome is always the response to that behavior. The clearer the child knows the boundaries, the more freedom everyone has, including the kid, because he doesn't have to keep testing to find the boundaries. So did you guys bring your workbooks? I don't know if that notice went out. I want you to look in your workbooks. And somewhere I have the pages. You can find them. Well, let me go look. Let me look then. All my papers have gotten messed up while I'm talking. I want you to take a look at point sheets in the workbooks. Here it is. Let's see. See if one of you can find it quicker before I can. Point sheet for a younger child is on page 79. For an older child, it's on page 81. For teens, on page 83. These are samples. And there's even a point sheet in there for you guys, by the way. It's your way, a point sheet is your way of stating what you want to have happen in a behavioral way. And by the way, you'll notice that some of those point sheets for kids aren't all behavioral, and that's done intentionally. So you can spot when they're not, and you should be. But the more you can have an organized system of letting your kid know what you expect and what you want to see happen, and provide some kind of rewards for that. A point sheet is a very concrete contract. You don't make the child do it every day. You offer him the opportunity to do it. Some people are able to reward with money. It might be time with the TV. It might be, let's go for a walk together. Let's play catch together. He can earn different things. Maybe it's that lollipop, whatever, but it's your way of being very clear with your child of what you expect. And it's his way of understanding what you expect, and you fill it in your own way. You don't do exactly what the point sheets that you're looking at. And maybe you'll start with 3 or 4 behaviors in the beginning, but please pay attention to those point sheets. So the rubber band rule says that when a kid is testing boundaries, is challenging you, you pull the boundaries in. When a kid is managing himself, is following the rules of the house, you give him more freedom. And it's a constant shift between more freedom and greater boundaries until he begins to integrate that more and more. Now, I told you the C word is not okay, but behaviors do have outcomes and need to have outcomes. And so outcomes for behaviors is not you tricking the kid and trapping him to do something nasty to him. It's letting, I mean, I probably told you this when we had the classes. I can now tell you the end of the story is not good. I have always gone a few miles over the speed limit, and no less going up the street that leads to my home. I was in line with every other car, and the cops pulled us all over because the people going up that abandoned street, always, it's a 25-mile-an-hour limit. Nobody goes under 35 or 40 because nobody else is around. There's no houses around. And sure enough, I got a ticket a while ago. And you know what? Sandy is going to be watching very carefully to maintain speed limits. But for a long time, I had no outcomes for my 5 miles an hour over the limit until coming up the hill with every car in front of me and behind me, we all got pulled over. And now Sandy is watching her speed very carefully. Should you protect your child from unhappy or negative outcomes? Then you're saying your behavior doesn't matter. So you want to let him know that that is unacceptable and let him experience the outcome for it. And again, you want to use concrete rewards whenever possible. Hugs, high fives, those are wonderful things. If it could be a little piece of candy, some extra TV, something that's measurable, playing a game, taking time to play a game together, something like that. And remember the power of family scripts. We're going to go faster. We're going to remember the choices actually equal power. When you give your child choices, so maybe cleaning up the room is not a choice you want to give him, but you know what? If he's refusing to do it, you could let him pick which day. You could let him pick which time of day. You could even let him pick which part of the room. Anything to get out of that head-banging, constant power and control struggle. And so we're going to go through some of these because we got to go faster. The time's almost up here. So parents who say, okay, I'll give you one more chance. What if you've already been clear with the kid? You told them what was acceptable. And if you continue to do that, I guarantee you, you will keep facing the same challenges over and over. The kid saying, just this once, can't I? If you do, you understand you've set a new pattern where you're going to have this challenging response from him. I told him no, and I'm not backing down. Well, if you told him no and you found out that maybe you were digging your heels in a little hard, it's okay to say to him, you know, I've kind of rethought that, and I think I like this solution better. This is what I've come up with now. And the same thing, you think I was really angry, but I didn't let the kid know. Believe me, that nonverbal language is extremely powerful, and the kid knows exactly how you're feeling. But he even feels more empowered because you can't own it. And so he feels like you're out of control and can't even own that you're angry. It's amazing how all this works. So, the dynamics of communication. One part is how we think, the other part is our behavior, our verbal and our nonverbal messages. And what you want to have happen is that those two messages are the same. What you're thinking inside and what you're saying out through your mouth and through your body language needs to match. And these are all the different ways that we communicate: words, body language, feelings, facial expressions, tone of voice. Effective communication is spoken in I am. It's all about me. You're going to show the child how the child will benefit. Short, to the point, not real wordy, behavioral terms, right? We're just reviewing how. And show the child how he'll benefit and show him what the outcome will be. And here's a great one. If I don't know how many times you have tried to get your kid's attention and you can't get it, have you ever tried whispering to your child? It's absolutely amazing. And I could tell you stories of how it worked here in this home with the foster kids that I had. So you're going to keep practicing. You're going to avoid that contaminated vocabulary, the power struggle vocabulary. You're going to remember to speak concretely to them about behaviors. You're going to communicate what you want. Don't tell them what they did wrong. Tell them the replacement behavior, what you'd like them to do. And you're going to remember that silence is a powerful tool, but first you got to set the ground rules. Win-win outcomes are absolutely positive and absolutely possible, but it takes a long time to change a behavior. Resistance to the new behavior and your failing are not synonyms. Resistance and failure do not mean the same thing. So remember, you're going to stay calm, you're going to state expectations. Again, behavioral, positive. Remember that boundaries actually gives the kid more freedom, because once he understands the boundaries of life, he has much more freedom to make his own choices. And you're going to be proactive and compliment him when he's doing something well. Don't wait till he messes up and then criticize him or give him an outcome for it. And you always are going to show the child how he'll benefit. So you're going to influence the child to do what you want him to do based on his needs. You're going to stay focused on the replacement behavior, the positive thing you want him to do, not what you don't want him to do. And you understand you're going to be tested and retested because you are changing a pattern of parenting that has already taught him that he can get away with certain things, and it's going to take a while for that to change, but it will happen. And remember that if there is conflict between you and your kid, it's because you chose to enter into the conflict. There cannot be a war if both armies don't line up at the battle line. You're going to influence your child rather than get into this big power struggle thing with them. And one way to do that is choices. And the reason you maintain control is because you're designing the choices. You're deciding what his choices are going to be. So you have absolute control, but he feels in charge because he just picked one of the choices. We're going to skip these. Well, we're not. Okay. So embedding instructions is you tell him something you want him to do that he likes to do. And then you put something in the middle. So it might be, so do you want to come in now and have that donut and glass of milk? It doesn't have to be food. It can be anything. Come and talk to me about, your bike ride today. And then you're going to put in something that and when you're done telling me about your bike ride, why don't you go in and, get your shoes out of the entry hall, because I've already tripped on them a couple of times, and could you put them in your closet? And then after that, how about if you and I and something else positive? So you put the thing that you want him to do in the middle of something nice and something nice, instead of just arguing about what you want him to do. And then at the end, you thank him for being helpful. And the next one is, instead of embedding it in between other things you want him to do, you just keep the positive energy going and you say, well, let's get this done, something he likes to do. Let's do this. I love that. Let's do this. And then let's do this one too. And then let's go on and do this. You just keep it rolling as part of everything you're offering for him to do. And again, that point sheet, please take your time, go back through that workbook and look. The power of the pen, I've already shared with you, that kid who was so upset, and I said, wow, let me get a pencil, I want to write this down. We went from rage mode that would have ended up in throwing furniture, which had happened before, to the kid calmly telling me what was bothering him. And you're not going to make your child share. When children are ready to share, they will. When you make them share before they're ready, it's similar to cutting off a limb. I mean, it's painful for the kid. When they're ready, they'll share. Honoring the child has amazing results. And this is the part I really wanted to get to, and we still have some time for a couple of things. You're going to thank your child. You're going to thank him for trying or doing part of the task. Don't be upset because he didn't do it all. Pick the one positive thing he did do. You're going to maybe he accomplished it. Thank him for that. Or maybe he had a good idea. Or maybe he's telling you how he felt. Instead of raging and kicking and screaming, he's doing it calmly and respectfully. Maybe he's followed directions. Maybe he followed one direction out of 4. Wow, you followed one direction. That's a great start. Again, maintaining control or regaining control after having lost it. Admitting a lie. So yeah, you could focus on you rotten kid, you told a lie. Or you could say, wow, that took a lot of guts to be able to say that you lied. Good for you. I bet you soon enough you're going to have the guts to just tell the truth. You won't even need that lie. Good for you. Catch them doing the right thing and make a big deal out of it. And feel free to marvel. Oh, you did that? How did you do that? How did you get all those shoes put away from the entry hall? And you did it so nicely, you got them right in the, whatever it is. How did you change your mind and decide to help? What a great decision. Okay? We're constantly building on the positive. And please, please, please remember the definition of a happy family, because we hold ourselves up to an image that can never be achieved. We see a family, whether it's at church, at the playground, and in that moment of time, everybody's getting along and the kid's cooperating, and your kid is biting your ankle and the other one's swearing at you, and you're thinking, how can I ever measure up to that family? Well, I finally figured it out. My definition of a happy family is a family you don't know very well. Because if you were in their lives all of the time, you would see that they go through the same garbage that you go through. It's just, unfortunately, you see them at those warm, positive, wonderful moments, and causes you to just beat yourself up. Don't do that to yourself. And that is the end. So let me show you a couple more things. I sent home with you. I didn't send home with you because everything's virtual. You got this document, the behavior checklist, sent to you electronically. And all I have done is got 3 headings in it. If you want desirable and positive behavior to continue, if you want undesirable and negative behavior to stop, and if you want desirable positive behavior to replace negative behavior. And what I've done in this is I have given you a behavioral description of what to say or do every time. And it works. And if it doesn't work, for you to reach me, you can always call Parents Challenge and say, what is that woman's email address? Because this didn't work, or what is her phone number, or whatever, and you get in touch with me and we'll sort it out. Do you have any other questions? Or any thoughts that you'd like to share? That would be helpful to me even, because I'm always learning and growing.
Something, Sandy. I just want to say thank you for having taught the class when you did, because like I found myself several times in the midst of this pandemic, even today, like I had my 10-year-old, I was like, okay, you know, like we'll cry, get all your tears out, just cry harder, cry, you know. So I did that thing, and giving them choices, reminding them, you know, all of the, like I just hear different things that you've said in the past that have really been helpful. And so I just want to say thank you.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I hope those of you who doubt and want to carry on the conversation, ask Deborah how to get in touch with me, and she'll give you, you know, contact information. Since we're all virtual, I have no screen I'm going to put. Well, it is on the screen. There it is. But you could also just ask Deborah how to get a hold of me, and let's continue the conversation, because the way I will perceive your questioning, what that means to me is you're really working hard on understanding it. I admire questioning. The people who just sit quietly through the whole thing and are thinking in their minds, you know, yeah, it all sounds good, but I don't believe it. Again, you don't know till you try. And
I just want to interject here. That was me.
Go ahead. You what?
I said that was totally me. The person you're describing was totally me.
There's your perfect example. Hooray for you for stepping forward, because, and man, she was in that audience and she just would look at me and I could see it. And then finally, I had a lot of respect for her. Instead of saying, Sandy, you're full of bull, she just simply got up and respectfully said, yeah, well, it sounds to me like you're just trying to bribe the kids. And, you know, I can't live my life that way. And I said, well, if what you're doing, remember my response to you? I said, if what you're doing is working for you, then keep it up. But if not, consider some of these things and consider trying them and seeing what the outcomes are for you.
Yeah, and I really kept on going in circles with myself over and over again. I would actually prepare my mind for things that you were saying, and it actually like try to come up with a way to get you to see my perspective
Yeah.
instead of listening to what you had to say. I was just like, maybe if I just listen the whole way through,
Yeah.
then it would actually maybe somehow come to me that maybe the way I'm thinking is wrong. So once I started feeling like, okay, well, maybe the way I'm thinking is wrong, let me actually give her the chance to even try to talk to me. Once I was open to it, then I was just like, okay, I think I can maybe work on some of these things. And then, I don't know, it just was a process,
It is a
but it
process.
really did eventually sink into where now, because I feel like I was so controversial in the way I was thinking, I feel like now I'm probably your biggest fan.
There are parents who parent with authoritarian approaches that work. What I'm giving you is when other things don't work, try some of these for your solutions. They all work, but you don't have to agree or believe that. But when what you're doing and believe in so strongly is driving you nuts because it's not working, try some of these things and see. I want to conclude with one last thing. I would love to be able, those of you who have tried some things, I would love to be able to get some testimonials. Would it be all right? Or I'm going to work through Deborah. So I would ask that if any of you do not want to be contacted, if you would do me the favor of letting Deborah know that. And I don't even know if Deborah's still part of this, what do you call it? This meeting. Thank you. But anyway, I'm going to, unless I get a specific message from Deborah to please don't contact me, I'm going to do that and see if any of you who have tried some of these things. And Sarah, I would ask, if you would even give me some contact information, because yours is the kind of testimonial that so many people would value. And you can email me, you can, I'll give you my personal cell phone number. It's 719-660-0221. And if you would give me a call in a time when we could maybe get some testimonials, and even those of you who are doubting, that's a measure of the current status. And then it would be interesting to see some months down the road, as you decide to try maybe one or two of these things, the differences you might see.
Hey, Miss Sandy, can you give me that number again? My mom's no longer on the call. I'm going to finish it up, but can you give me that number again so I can put it in the chat?
Yep, 719-660-0221. And I would love as many of you who are willing to give me some comments. And please go to the website. There are all kinds of amazing new things on that website. And there's 2 articles on the coronavirus. The one that just went in, which shows a woman who's looking at a mask to put on, but hasn't yet put on. That's all about where parents are at and how it feels for us as parents. So please take a minute to just take a look at that and see if that won't help you with some of your struggles. So I'm so glad to have had this opportunity. It's so good to see you all again.